So here's a big disclaimer, because everybody nowadays, the lawyers got way too much free time on their hands. We're not trying, okay, this is just a as-is sheet. We're not saying this is going to solve anything for you. We're not saying this is going to fix any of your problems. It's going to save you money, or I'm just summarizing this. I'm not going to read it exact, but you've all got it in your books. This is not meant to replace, and Steve is going to beat this to death, I know, because he and I have discussed this at length. This is not meant to replace sound veterinary or medical advice. While some of these items can be used for humans in addition to dogs when they're meant for steer and horses originally, we're not sitting there saying we're going to guarantee if you inject your dog with something that he's done a million times, it's not going to cause problems for your dog. We're not going to guarantee it's not going to cause problems for you. We're just simply stating this is something to consider, an option to look at in an event of a preparedness situation arising. Okay? It's all yours, Steve. Thank you.
I'm Steve Yeldell. I'm nobody. I'm John Doe citizen. I'm 53 years old. I've been messing with animals probably 52 and a half of those years. I was raised on a farm where we took care of it. I mean, we've done everything but help the vet in the middle of the pasture, in the middle of the rain, in the middle of the night doing C-sections, because that's when they always get down having a calf. Pulled calves all my life, things like that. I always wanted to be a vet and then realized, you know, there's got to be an easier way to make a living. So I've done a lot of it. I've been around a lot of it. The more I get to digging for information for this and looking, I realize just how little I do know. I'm also an x-ray tech. I've been in the medical field for 30 years. So I come with that background as well. And just like in that 30 years, things have changed dramatically. Things have changed dramatically in taking care of animals. A lot of what happens with people filters down through animals. A lot of what happens in our animals filters up to the people. We learn what works, and we're going to talk about a lot of the things here that will suffice, have sufficed. I have personally seen things I've personally used, and things that I know people that do. This is not like Will said. This is not a tip to take your best job away. We all have a different level of how we deal with our pets and how we are attached to our pets. Some people soon get rid of their husband and their pet. And then other ones, our animals are a tool or a means of making a living. I came from a background that was more that. My wife and I probably had more fights dealing with animals than we have anything. My kids have show steers, and won't bother me a bit to pick up a 2x4 or an axe handle and work one of them over if it's the difference between it having an effect on one of them hurting my kids. And but I was raised around animals. She was raised around animals. She was raised around animals as pets, more as pets. We had 700 acres in cattle, and you know, you got their attention one time up front, then you didn't have a problem long term. So as with everything, with kids, everybody's different. So I say all this to say that you may do something a little different. You may be more gentle with it. You may be more harsh with it. I tend to probably be on the harsh side of a lot of things in how I handle it, nip it in the bud, do it up front, and roll on. So I'm not marginalizing the care of your pets or your animals in any way, form, or fashion. Also, Will and I talked about the fact that Will has pet insurance, and there is pet insurance available out there to you. You need to sit down and make the evaluation of what would I spend to care of this animal. What is it worth? Me, it gets to the point and I'm like, we're done. We're done. This is about where it is, and we're done. But if that has no limits, and for many it doesn't, and I'm not one to judge that, and nobody else is either. But if that is a real possibility for you, this pet insurance is real. It's real, and it's something that you need to do.
It's very useful.
Because, that being said, his daddy, his daddy, this dog's daddy.
There's a dog down there.
Yeah, there's a little bit.
There's a dog down here. His daddy ended up having a knot on his side. I drew, stuck a needle in it, drew it out, had pus in it. Took it to the vet. They gave us some antibiotics and everything. And then the day of our county show, The morning of, he's sitting there and he can't get his head out farther. And I told her, I said, look, I got 3 steers and kids, I got to go, but you not to take him somewhere. Every vet in Caldwell were at the show with their kids. So she had to go to Brenham, and that night, as we're driving home, about 10:30, I get a call from the vet saying, hey, we gotta take this dog to A&M. Whoa, wait a minute. Whoa, hello, what's going on here? And they said, well, it's got an empyema, which is pus within the lung. We see it a lot with people. I do CAT scans and stuff like that. I've seen a ton of it. They see it a lot in horses. You don't see it much in dogs. Probably what happened, got a thorn. This is what caused the pus exterior to the lung. It migrated its way into the lung cavity. Typically, they don't make it. But when the treatment to do is to put a chest tube in and to drain that pus out and everything. And she's like, that's what we need to do, send them to A&M and do that. And I'm like, what's that going to cost? She goes, $2,000 or $3,000. She said, we're already at $2,250 now. And I'm like, we ain't going to A&M. I got my daughter in the background who just sold her steer for $5,000. Says, Daddy, you can take all my money to take care of the dog. I'm like, oh my God, now what? So you need to make those evaluations ahead of time. I spent about $2,500 on that dog. I've never spent that in my life of being raised with horses, cattle, and everything. I've never spent that much money on a cow, a horse, or anything else, and probably won't ever again. But that being said, I said, we're done. Talked to my daughter about the fact that it's a conversation that we probably need to have about our families and people. I see it every day. I see people put their mother through God knows whatever that they wouldn't put their dog through because they feel guilty of what they've dealt with and making those decisions. And that's why I talked to my daughter. I was like, do you want him to continue to suffer? They're going to put him, and this kind of stuff. So we got through that and everything. The dog is done fine, and there are reasons to go there. There's reasons to go there, especially for unusual things with cattle and things that come up. We see it in the movies, and I grew up with it, that you got a cow that's dead, and the vet just don't have a clue. We need to send this into A&M, find out why. Because we had 400 other cows out there that we didn't want to end up dead. So that's also a thing. So you have to set your priorities and your limits. You also have to evaluate your time investment. A lot of what we're talking about here is a whole lot of time of taking care of things that, yeah, you take them to the vet, you drop them off, and they give you a phone call, and 2 weeks later you pick them up, along with a bill. Now, you know what? If you don't have the time, or you're not willing to take the time to do those things, that's what you got to do. Okay? So you need to understand that a lot of what we're talking about is things that you're very capable of doing, any one of you in here, but it's a time commitment as well. Okay? And your pet's discomfort. That's what I was talking about. Realizing what are we putting, I had a dog got hit by a car, broke his leg, and I had a rod put in his femur. Me personally, I will never do that again. That dog was never the same, and he suffered from that day on. I've seen the ones do great, but because of my personal experience, I won't do that again. It had nothing to do that it wasn't done right or anything like that. It just killed me to see this dog that had been here and was never able to do what he truly loved doing anymore. So today, what today is about education, understanding, giving you some skills, giving you some options for your animals, saving you some money, and some options for animals that can be used for us if it hits the fan. Okay? If this EMP comes like Will was talking about or anything else like that, guess what? Your vet's probably going to be your best friend because he's going to probably be the doctor. He's going to be spending more time taking care of patients than he will be animals. Okay? And a lot of the stuff that we'll talk about here cost-wise as we go through, that's not very costly, that has a shelf life that's immense, that you have on hand that you can take care of yourself. Because just like Will had said, there's going to be a lot of this huddling together. And if you've got those skills and you can help each other, maybe, the vet, let's face it, for our grandparents, the local vet, he was your dentist, he was your doctor. Just about it. My great-grandfather was a doctor. And he went through 1 year of school. Now, med school then was 1 year. It actually had 2 years. The second year, all it was an exact repeat again of the first year. If you didn't get it well enough the first year, you went through a second year. But there was no difference in the training. It was just doing it all over again. So 2 years. So most of us that work in the healthcare field now, everything from EMTs to even x-ray techs, nurses and that, we probably have more knowledge today than the doctors did in our grandparents' time. It's just a fact of the way it is. So knowledge is what it's about, is understanding, and that's what we're here, is to learn about these things and learn what we can do, what we know is out there, okay? We're going to be looking at some routine things we do with our pets. We're also going to look at some common elements that I'm just marginally hitting on. It's about this big. So we're just going to hit on just a couple of things that I came across that are kind of tied to the other things we have here, and some emergency treatments. The other question I have for you, the documents that I have, separate Word files?
I can get the things in it.
Okay. Because when we get to...
I didn't offload them with the Dropbox.
Okay. In the routine care, we're talking about vaccinations, worming, looking at heartworms. Heartworms is a big thing. Growing up, I never heard of a heartworm in my life. Never did. Dog gets bad enough, take him out, and look him in the head and be done, and roll on and get the next one that shows up on the doorstep. I mean, I was raised in the country. So we never knew anything about heartworms, and now we'll talk to great length about that. You get roundworms, hookworms, tapeworms. It's about evaluating your animal, looking, and this is the way my lifetime we did with cattle and everything else. You got a heifer look kind of wormy. We need a wormer. It wasn't, well, we got the calendar, and or as my wife, her phone comes up and tells her, hey, today's the day for this. We've got to do this. We didn't do that. We treated symptoms, not a routine. And there are advantages to both. Especially when we look at some cost savings here that we've got, you get more in the routine, because typically if you wait till they're looking that way, sometimes you're behind the curve, you've lost a lot. But that's the way I was raised, is the fact that, you see a heifer, she's looking kind of skinny, but we better worm her. We hadn't wormed them in a bunch, and if we had 2 or 3 like that, we may go through and worm the whole bunch. In the same way, we did the same thing with our dogs and things like that. Flea and tick, the way we handled that was when we were dipping the cows, we dog, take him and just dunk him in the tank, and yep, okay, that's what we did. And that's about the extent of it. Fly control, those are all things that we're going to look at. With new pups, initial shots. Take them to the vet. What do the initial shots cost at the vet? $40?
No,
the very first ones.
First of all, you're talking at least 80.
Yeah.
This right here came from Tractor Supply. You go to Tractor Supply, they got the last box back there. You get them at Co-op, anywhere. This is first shots. We're going to give him his shot. This costs $9, $8.99.
And that's all the shots you need for the first round of
The
dogs.
first round. It's all. It's a 5-way. And we're going to look at the different regimen that it has. One thing when you work around these things for a while, sometimes you're especially not used to them. You kind of get hard about trying to open them. If you just pop it like that, right there, that pops the top right off. It's easy. Do it quick and easy. Pop it out like that. And then on these, you've got a dry material that's in here, and you've got a liquid. So what you do is you take your liquid.
Does it have instructions in case you don't know?
It does have the instructions on the back of this. In fact, y'all can pass this around. And also,
He's showing us this right now just to give you an idea how simple what he's about to talk about is. Because it is a very simple thing, it's just getting to know it that's the hurdle for most.
you
They have it for
can
cats,
think,
too?
well, that's a big deal. And
Yes.
it's not. And this time you don't have to really worry about the air, because you're re-injecting this into here, and you see there's a vacuum. See how it sucked it right up? That's the best way to do it. Just leave it like that. And you give it a couple of minutes, swirl it a little bit. We do this at the hospital all the time. A lot of our meds are this way. Nuclear medicine, a lot of our meds, we remix like this.
You need to mention that the puppy shots have to stay cold.
Oh yes, that is a good point. If you go to Tractor Supply, if you go up there, you ask them, they have a little pack like this. taking the ice chest with you. They said, as hot as it's been, just going from there to the house, it'll run. So ask them, they have the ice packs there. I don't know if Co-op, because I just haven't, I know they have the medicines. I don't know if they have the ice packs, but I do know that Co-op does.
Yeah, but just bring your own.
Ma'am?
Yes,
Just bring your own.
Yeah,
Going to
bring
go
your
buy
own.
it.
That's all you do. Put a handful of ice in a little one like that, and then just drop it in there. And this isn't a big deal if you got one dog, think of it. But you know, we had puppies. We had 8 puppies.
5 cats.
You know, 8 puppies. Just trying to do the right thing and take care of things before we sell them. You know, it adds up real quick. And they, you know, they want $100 to evaluate.
For healthy
What they were telling us is they'll evaluate 4 of them. If they see any problems, then they'll go along evaluating them. But they do a true evaluation on 4, and then they give shots to all of them. But they do a in-depth,
well puppy.
you know,
They called it a well puppy.
well puppy check on 4. That's what they suggested to us, and it was.
So
I was
that
like,
was left cold in your.
yes. I just brought it out just a while ago. In here, the temperature is fine enough to not have to worry about it.
And that has all the shots
It
in
has
one deal.
the first 5. It's I've got it up here on the thing. We'll talk about it of what all's in it. Now, one of the things there's 2 things that you need to worry about, and that is getting the air out. You pull it down so your air at the top, tap it, and then you just go up until you see a couple of drops coming out. Okay? Don't just try to go ahead and pull down and get you some air in there. Okay? Pull down, get some air, and then go up.
Don't put
And then the key thing is doing this recapping. More people are stuck recapping than they are doing anything. Most of your hospital-based systems have gone to a needless system and everything.
Just got comfortable.
And he just got comfortable there, and I'm gonna, and simply because this is the way my dad always did. We just take alcohol and pour it on there, give it a little bit. Now, this shot, we're going to give subcutaneous. We're going to talk about this a little more. And it's just as easy as just pulling up some of the skin and sticking it up underneath there.
She's gonna stand up so you guys aren't gonna see it.
Put it up there.
On the
Put the
tape?
towel up here and put him on the
He
table.
didn't got it wet, so.
Oh,
And all I do,
He dribbled a
we're
little.
going to go up here, kind of the neck, what we call the neck of the neck. You see how you can grab that skin like that? That's exactly what we're going to do. Okay?
He's like,
Look real happy.
We just
he'll be alright.
put a little alcohol there like that. And then you just pull it up. And you want to be in that skin, but not through it. Hold still.
Oh,
Still.
oh.
He knows he's in.
And then you just rub it.
So-
That's how easy. We're done. I got alcohol all over her. Can you do that?
Yes,
Nothing to it.
absolutely.
Nothing to it. And then you just dispose of your sharps and everything else. This one we're going to dispose down there. But
Just so everybody knows, with that batch, it tends to make him a little drowsy, so it may be normal for him to kind of let's take a nap
How do you
after.
dispose of your sharps? Do you have to put them in cement?
no, what I do, simply because we tend to have more of it around the house, I take a Coke can. I always drop a sharp down a Coke can. Just bend the
But
top.
you don't have to solidify that?
I don't. I do not in any way. Probably the best way to do it, but they're aluminum. Put them inside the aluminum can. You know, that's the main thing.
And then
Or
where do
inside, you put them inside a tin can, a bean can, and just bend the top. Okay?
But where do you put it then? How
Ma'am,
do you dispose of
I
it?
put it in my regular trash.
Yeah.
Once I do that, I put it in regular trash.
The rules for sharp disposals for a medical facility with a sharps
Different.
container or cement are different than daily use
Right.
person. Like for
Right.
somebody who does diabetes injections daily, that person doesn't have they don't always have sharps containers, they don't always do that stuff.
Right? And you say, well, what do you do with the top off those tin cans that you cut off there? You know, it's got them rigged sharp edges. What do you do with those? You put them in your trash like everything else. So we tend to get wherever, but what you have to understand is, with medical waste, you're dealing with a lot of disease
Right.
processes. Okay, number one. With diabetics, they tend to have a volume. My mom's a diabetic. There's a volume there, and a good heavy, not a regular milk jug, but the heavier gallon jugs. Having one of those, take the top off, drop it down there. It's going to go to a landfill. It's going to go to a landfill and be crushed in it. What you don't want is the guy that's working in picking up a trash bag to get poke through the side and poke in. So you put it inside one of those heavy jugs and you seal it up, you can by all means put some concrete, plaster Paris or anything else in there. But diabetics, that's what I suggest with is you can go buy a sharps container. There's nothing magic. Nobody's saying a Hail Mary over there, nothing to make it something special. It's a plastic container. That's all it is. It's a heavy plastic container. At the end of the day, it's a heavy plastic container. So all you can do, the other thing is, you can throw it if you burn your own trash, or if you have, you know, always, especially many down limbs as we've had lately, you know, we always have fires and stuff. Like 2 weeks ago today, I like to did myself in. That's what reminded me of. I was pushing a tree with a front end loader. And if you don't think they call them widowmakers for a reason, I had a tree fall, break it 20 foot,
Oh.
and have 18 foot fell hit on top of the head. So be careful. Anyway, all right.
Now, just to make a note, we're also talking about emergency preparedness. If it all hit the fan, you can boil these and save them for
Yes.
something else, because they're gonna come in handy.
Yeah, these needles that have the metal base, yeah, if it hit the fan, I spent my life, and we're gonna talk about this, right here, syringes, these all come apart. I spent my life, there's a distinct smell when you take this stuff and the needles. I don't know why it is, but it's a smell that all my life I'll always remember, and I do it now, is when you put them in water and just we boil them for about 5 minutes. It's a smell that I just was raised around, and it's funny, I do it now and it's the same smell. It's like, you know, it's like growing up. But I have these because I've had them around. These actually belong to a high school ag teacher of mine. He passed away, and his wife, they were going to throw stuff away, and so I got to come. It ain't worth replacing the gaskets and stuff in these days. We'll talk about that. The disposable ones are so cheap, but you can, like she said, you can reboil them. The needles with a plastic base, these will not. These will melt, but any of the ones with a metal base, and you take a wet rock, and you take that bevel and you just match that bevel and you can resharpen them. Did it all my life. You can also buy a heavier gauge of needles that aren't disposable, that are made to be done that way over and over again and resharpened. So those are things for.
And if you really want to, I'm sure, I think it's hospitals, they accept old used sharps or
Yes,
something like that?
yes, and that's true. Most hospitals and most doctors' offices will allow you to go and put things in their sharps, and I read that a couple of places as well, where people had talked about doing that. Okay, now then the other thing, you can get all of their vaccinations there. The thing you cannot get is rabies. You have to go to a vet to get the rabies because you got to get your tag. Okay. Now my vet used to say, "Here's 3 tags and 3 needles," because you know what? It's nothing magical about that. It's exactly what I just did. It's a syringe full of medicine and that. But my vet had done business with me my whole life and knew me.
You used to be able to buy rabies.
Yeah, used to.
Yeah.
Used to. Yeah.
My dad used to do it.
Yeah. And so that you need to take them to the vet, get that done, and that way you get your tags. And that's good. It's good for that once a year thing. It's like, when do you go see your doctor? I don't know. Me, I grew up where if something was cut, falling off of the floor, we might go to the doctor then. Other than that, we just didn't go. Nowadays, believe me, I work in the medical field, and you see somebody sneezes in there at the doctor's office. But typically, if nothing's going on, you go to the doctor once a year and get your yearly checkup. That's the same thing with your animal. Go get your rabies tags, kind of, you know, let them do that checkup. And the other things that there's a lot of other stuff that you can do yourself. Okay, this is the vaccination. This is talking about the distemper, hepatitis, parainfluenza, and the paravirus. Okay, that's the one that you get 6 to 8 weeks.
The one you just gave him?
Mm-hmm. That's the first one. And actually, that was a 5-way. And I think there's one other thing that's not listed. Who's got the round?
It's right there on the table right there. By his name.
Somebody's got eyes. Read that. I think there's one other thing in there.
Lepto?
It's a 5-way.
Lepto maybe?
I don't think the lepto is that early.
It's distemper, adenovirus, type 2, parainfluenza, parvo. That's all it says.
Didn't say hepatitis.
That's like 5 and 1.
Anyway, when you go there, they've got it listed out, okay? And for each of these, at each of these spells, the 6 to 8, 10 to 12, 16, it's got all of the they've got them there, so you can go and pick them up and give, it takes about the same amount of time to do it as that in Rapid, okay?
And how often are the boosters?
I don't know, I think
Every
it's
3 to
once
4
a year,
weeks.
huh?
Oh, at the beginning it's 3 to 4 weeks out.
Yeah, I think after that, I think the booster is once a year. Mine, I don't ever give a booster. Once I get through with this, I don't do boosters, that's me. But I tend to be a minimalist as far as that type of thing.
But you do rabies over again.
Ma'am?
Don't you do rabies over again?
Yes, rabies are every year, yes.
Yeah.
Every year or every 2 years?
It is 2 years, it is 2 years. This is the cat. And at this point, I want to make a disclaimer here. My knowledge about cats is about as limited as it is for anything. We had barn cats. I like a cat to come up, and when I call him, let me pet him and go. I can't take a cat all up on top of me all the time. I'm allergic to them. I was raised around animals. I'm even allergic to dogs, horses, cows, everything now. Turned 30 years old and I'm allergic to everything, but I still, mess with all of it. But cats, I have the least amount of knowledge. Cats at the same time are the most hypersensitive, hardest ones to deal with and to use other things for because they are hypersensitive. And everything I've read said that cats go with what, take them to the, if they're that important to you, take them to the vet. Take them to the vet because there's too many problems. Cats have a lot of reactions to a lot of things. Everything from even periphery and the little flea and tick control. That they'll have responses to that. So that's.
So you wouldn't give shots to a cat?
You wouldn't give
So
what?
you're saying it's not
Oh,
a good
and
idea to give shots to a cat?
And the other thing is,
Or your welding clothes?
the other,
He's just
I was just
giving
gonna
a
say, the other
disclaimer.
thing is,
You better know how to do
cats
it.
will eat your lunch.
Yes, they will.
My high school principal wanted to help the lady next door. She had some kittens that she was just going to get rid of. And he went over to take care of them for her. And he had a leather glove on and the cat turned around and bit him through a little hole this big in his leather glove. And the man nearly lost his life. I saw his hand had to be lacerated. You hear cat scratch fever and all this. He spent literally 9 months with his hand totally unusable. The risk is real.
Through Pet Supply, you can get some cat restraining bags that work very well.
Oh, have you? Have you? See,
Well, you have to know how to use a towel real
Yes.
well.
yeah, a towel or toe sack. What we grew up with was a toe sack. We would
These
take,
bags are great.
yeah, we'd take a toe sack and be able to do that. And
Wrap
so,
up in-
cats and any wild animal. I have friends that we were just talking earlier today. A lot of people like to have coons, baby coons. And a baby coon is cute as can be, but I have never been around one that didn't turn bad and will eat your
That is very
lunch.
true.
So,
It's called breeding age.
yes, yes.
Like teenagers.
Yeah, so be very careful with any of that. Our key thing with your animals is just like with people. And I used to be over the mammography department at St. Joe's, and I would tell everybody, it's fine, you go to the doctor and get your checkup every year, but nobody knows your body like you or your husband. Don't depend on your doctor. Depend on yourself, because you know what's different. Same thing with your animals. Take your animal to the vet. Your vet does not know how that animal has acted all along and know that he's not acting right. You have to pay attention. Pay attention to him and say, something's not quite right. He always eats his food this way, or he always eats this and he's not eating it. Or it's all about observation and understanding what's normal for them. No two dogs or cats are alike. We use differential diagnosis in people. You got a cough, you go in, well, we got a cough. Well, you could have pneumonia, you could have this, that, and the other, so we'll take a chest x-ray. And we work our way through, and differential diagnosis is what we use. And I like this example. Example that we use if your car don't start. You can't get your car to start. Well, for a car to run, it's got to have 3 things. It's got to have fuel, it's got to have air, it's got to have a spark. So you work your way through and we say, is it getting air? We open up the air filter, that air filter's clogged. Well, that's probably a good bit of what the problem is. But if we open that up and that's not the problem, we go to the next step and we say, okay, no fuel. Have we got any gas? Is there any gas in the tank? Well, that's an easy one, okay? Or is it getting gas? Is the fuel filter stopped? Things like that. And then, is there no spark? Is there no spark? Is it because the plug's bad? Is the wire's bad? Is it a bad distributor or things like that? So as you work through that, and I stress this to people when they go to the doctor because, well, he's not doing anything, or he's working through that matrix, okay, of differential, we call it differential diagnosis, and you do that with your animals. You know, even when you go to the vet, your doctor doesn't know all, your vet doesn't know all. You take this differential diagnosis and you work your way through it, and when you get to a point where I don't know, then you go to the vet, or you go to the doctor, okay? So in medicine, that's what I was just talking about there. Animal characteristics to monitor. Abnormal behavior. They're acting weird. They're not eating what they're supposed to. Their stance or their movement. They're not walking properly. You know, when you got that cat and you ever seen a cat and his rear end kind of starts passing him when he's walking? You know, cats tend to get into a lot of things. One thing for cats. Never leave antifreeze. If you've got a car that's leaking antifreeze, cats love it and it will kill them graveyard dead. Okay? Antifreeze, ethylene glycol will kill a cat dead, graveyard dead. So, and it'll also, that's one of the first signs is they'll get that all loopy. It's weird. That's what they do. They're just rear end starts coming around when they're walking. But stance and movement. Horses and cows are the same thing. If you got with show steers, when you got a calf that's not bearing weight, he's not bearing weight on when he walks. So we got a problem. We got hoof rot. We got something going on. Nasal discharge. Nasal discharge in any animal is a problem. Baby calves. Baby calves. You get drainage, nasal drainage. You'd be dead today. You won't make 24 hours. Especially we had a bunch of cows that got bangs, which is brucellosis. And you had to sell them all for beef, but you keep the calves. So my brother and I had 38 baby calves on bottles. You don't pay attention, everybody wants to say, well, I'm going to buy me a dairy calf. And well, the first thing is you haul them back in the trailer with all that air on them, and I guarantee you, 9 times out of 10, you'll lose 50% of what you bring back. And they'll get the nasal drainage as an indication they're going to end up with pneumonia. They've got some type of infection, okay? Fecal consistency. That's the next thing. Scours. She laughs at me all the time because she didn't. Scours. Diarrhea. That's all it is. We call it scours. Okay. And so in cows, same thing with those calves. You got bottle calves. If you're not paying attention, this one gets scours. You better cut back on what you're feeding him. We tried to rig up a thing where you're feeding all of them at one time, and if they're giving the same thing and this one gets scours and you don't change it quickly, you'll be dead in the daytime. They're just very hypersensitive at that age. The same thing with any of your animals. If they have diarrhea, they have the scours. You see blood in their stool. You see parasites. Little worms crawling around in their stool. You will see it. You have an animal long enough, you will see it. Okay. Body condition. Are they fat like me? Or are they getting skinny and wasting away? It can happen really quick. Okay. The other thing is their level of activity. Malaise, if they're just laying around. Like I told you, that one dog, he couldn't lift his head up. Okay? I went out there and he's kind of like this, and you walk in the room and he's just like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I walk in there and he's just like, you knew something's wrong. Lameness, localized swelling of any type. Looking at their gums. What's the gums indicator of? Circulation and blood loss. Puppies, we lost a puppy. Hookworms are one of the biggest things when young puppies, and that's what, and they get in there and they suck your blood. And so you look at the gums, if the gums are pale, number one, look at them early on, so you know what's normal. Okay, that's the thing, is look, so you know what's normal, because some dogs have different colored gums. And they say look in the bottom of their eyes right here, underneath their eye, inside their eyelid, on those that have really dark gums. But look at their gums and see what's normal for them. Because then if they start getting pale and grayed out, they're losing blood. And that's a serious condition. That's a condition you need to get them to the vet. Okay? We ended up getting one to the vet and it was too late. He'd already lost too much. So, fever. Fever is another big thing. How do I tell if my dog's got fever? Well, number one, you put all these others together, and then your next question is, does he have fever? okay? And so, we're gonna look at normal temperatures. These are for cattle, horse, sheep, goats, swine. It was funny because the chart I found didn't have dog and cat, so I had to go elsewhere to look up that normal heart rate, normal respiratory rate. The respiratory rate here will mess with you because dogs and cats, depending on 5 minutes worth of activity, and they're panting. And because that dog I told you about earlier, he's got lung problems now, we're always concerned in watching him. Well, the more you watch him, the more you get worried, and like, well, he's breathing all fast. Then you turn around and look at the pup that's right beside him, he's just panting just the same. It's like, it's normal activity. So understanding normal activity, but and understanding these temperatures, I believe this is all in all your guidelines. Other thing that I wanted to, I talked to Will about that I wanted to stress. Things like this chart here, things like some of the medicines that we're going to talk about as far as the dosages and things like that. Print off a copy of them if it's something that you're interested in. Because guess what? That EMP hits, that computer file you got ain't going to work. If you don't have it written down somewhere, I've got a lot of data stored. But those things that are key, having it written somewhere. Doesn't have to be a whole lot, but just there's key things like this, knowing, well, what's normal, you know, and understanding it. If it's something that you work with all the time, you'll remember it. If it's not, then you need a reference. And we've gotten so used to Google,
Print it out and have a binder.
yeah,
Yeah.
she Googles everything. I mean, it's like, and it's funny, we went on the cruise. We were sitting around the dinner table on the cruise, and all of a sudden, well, what? And she goes to pull out her phone, and you know, we don't have phone coverage on there, and it makes you realize how much we depend upon that now. Because it's great, it's an awesome tool. But as with any tool, if it quits working, if that chainsaw quits working, can you take care of that tree? Okay, so understanding that. And I've also got one in, okay, the other thing to have is a digital thermometer. Now, don't take the one that your husband uses in there. She may. At least if you take it, don't put it back in the drawer. The other thing that you have to remember here is, don't forget the lube. Okay? You will perforate the anus on an animal if you do not lube these things up. Okay? So when you get ready to use it, and
Better have extra batteries.
ma'am?
They better have extra batteries.
Exactly,
They use
exactly. That's
batteries.
true too.
And actually, if an EMP happens, that's another paper.
Oh, that's true. Hadn't even
That's
thought about
computer
that.
right there.
Yeah,
that's
that's
true.
true. I had not even thought
So a
about that.
mercury thermometer might.
Mercury
Yeah.
thermometer, having one in the house. You know, once again, you can always disinfect it. You know, you may sit there and you disinfect it, you disinfect it.
You can hardly find them anymore.
And think about this too. I've got a scar right here where I got in a fight one time and got bit by a person.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
And that doctor told me
So
you were
where's
better
the
off
bite?
getting bit by a dog.
Oh,
Mhm.
yes.
The germs in a human's mouth
Huge.
are 20 times greater than in an animal, in a dog.
Yeah,
So that's just to let you know, you don't think, well, that dog's nasty. You deal with humans all the time.
Not a cat
Yeah, and so that I still have a scar today from that, and that's one. So understanding those type of things, and you treat everything appropriately. Coughing, shortness of breath, what does that tell you? You got some type of lung element. But another thing it can tell you is heartworms. Best dog I ever had. I moved to the country here. I moved from over off Southwest Parkway, moving out there. Came back. There was a little fur ball sitting by my front door. My son was with me. He wasn't 2 years old at the time, and it was a little child puppy. And so we went and found whose it was and gave it back to him. And we made another load out to Lines and came back, and he was sitting by the front door again. Oh, and the lady tried to sell him to me. Hey, he's full of. I want to.
It's
So we go back, take him back the next time, and she goes, look, why don't you just take him? You can have him. You can have him. I said, I guarantee you, he will get lead poisoning in my house the first time he even thinks about nipping at my son. And chows are bad. My friend's wife is a vet. She will not take care of chows. Chows are the only dog that will give you no warning before they eat you up. No warning whatsoever. I mean, he was a black tongue, and this was the best dog I've ever had in my life. This dog grew up. I think he knew But this, my kids, I mean, I even went to the point of taking food away from them, because you know how animals are with the food. They could ride him, they could, you know, we got married and she's got 2 daughters and same thing. This dog was the kind that you dream of. I just never would have had a child, never would have owned a child. It turned into, and it broke my heart. He ended up coughing real bad, like, and everything, and shortness of breath, and took him in, and he was eaten up with heartworms. That's the big thing about what we're going to talk about today.
See, it's important to note in that story too, that he had long hair. He was a very puffy, long-haired chow. And so we did not take the time to notice that he had lost a lot.
He lost a ton of weight. That is a very good point. When we really got to look at him, he had really lost a ton of weight, and we finally realized he's not eating right. He's not been eating right, you know, because in a household, you know, you got you're feeding and I'm feeding and the kids are feeding. You don't pay attention to those type of things. And with him being so big, it really didn't. We didn't find out. That's what heartworms look like.
Yep.
That's what heartworms look like. And they are all through the heart and through the walls. They drill holes through the walls. And that's what happens. And when they get that bad, like him, we could have went through the treatments and everything.
Oh, but they're hard.
But I wasn't willing to put him through that.
It's very hard on a
It's
dog.
extremely hard.
Very hard. But there's 2 types. There's one that's a little bit easier to go through. It's a longer
Yeah.
time, and there's one that's just massive doses.
Right.
And
And we're going to talk about some things today about that. But what happens is the reason they start getting a shortness of breath. How many people know anybody's got CHF? A lot of people end up with CHF, congestive heart failure. Their legs swell, things like that. You know, most all of us, we get old enough, that's what happens. It comes from your valves in your heart not sealing up good, and you end up building up this fluid and not getting off your body, and that's what causes you to have the coughing and the shortness of breath. And when you get these worms all through those valves and stuff, that's what happens. Okay. Heart guard. Heart guard is, man, it's the be-all, end-all, right? How many of you use heart guard? Yeah. It's Ivermectin, is what it is, and this is the dose that comes with the insert and everything, and it works really good. It uses ivermectin, and this is Ivomec. We use it on cattle, and this is the dose. It comes in 3 dose levels, up to 25 pounds. It's 68 mcg, which is micrograms, okay? And so if that dog weighs 1 pound or that dog weighs 25 pounds, he gets the same dose. And that dog becomes 26 pounds, he gets 136 micrograms. So a dog that's 26 pounds or a dog that's 50 pounds gets the same dose, okay? And then 51 to 100 gets 272 micrograms.
Would you hold that up again? I
I'm sorry.
didn't know
Oh.
that.
Yeah, we're going to talk at great length about this. This is one of the biggest things that we're going to talk about today, and the biggest takeaway, I think, for today. Here's your heart guard. The 51 to 100 pounds, 12 count, $83.88. That's 1 year. $83. That's if you buy it all at one time. Okay, you got the smaller dog, 26 to 50. You save a little money, it's only $71. And you get down here at the smaller dog, it's only $53. So that's not a bad, I mean, it's reasonable. It's really reasonable. When we look up here, heart guard, ivermectin. Okay, it's ivermectin, and they have parental in there as well that addresses some other things, and we'll kind of talk about that as we go. In order, Revolution is another brand out there that's used. But before the vets will, you have to go to a vet. You can't go to co-op. You can't go to Tractor Supply and buy these. You have to go to a vet. And the reason why is because they want to give your dog a test to see if they've got the heartworms first. To do that, you get $50 visit for the vet, $45 for the heartworm test. Okay? Then here it's $62 for 3 months. So to start with, this will cost you $157.
Revolution is the heartworm treatment, or is that the heart?
No, it's just like heartworm. It's another brand. It's another brand.
They'll make it for cats too.
Okay. This right here costs about $40. This is injectable for cattle. Okay? It's the same exact thing. It's ivermectin. Ivermectin is ivermectin is ivermectin. I can take this banana and I can call it whatever I want to, but at the end of the day, it's still a banana, okay? That's what this is. It's the same thing.